I took a closer look at my exam papers. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I mean, I could believe it because I knew I was kinda dumb, but I was wondering what my parents would say. Would they kill me? Would they abandon me? Perhaps they'd ground me for life? Send me to boarding school? Send me to a Christian school filled with nuns? I tried to stop myself from looking, but I couldn't help it. I snuck another peek. F, 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 F. Would I get expelled? Would I have to repeat a grade? I bumped into Mr. Longman, our butler, standing in the school hallway as I aimlessly walked while lost in thought. I quickly hid the papers from him, and he'd already caught a glance, so he smiled.
Miss Rachel, the limo awaits you outside,
he said in his butler voice, bowing and pointing towards the school's exit. Oh, Mr. Longman, I grumbled. It is nice to see you hale and hearty. I am sorry about the brief illness you encountered and glad to see you back on your feet. In your time away, though, it seems you've forgotten the most important instruction I have given you about picking me up at school.
What's that, miss?
He asked, genuinely clueless. Wait for me outside. Do not enter the school. Do not wait for me in the school hallway, Mr. Longman.
Oh, that.
He laughed. Yes, that. And what's so funny, sir? He immediately composed himself.
I didn't forget. I'd waited outside for some time already and you didn't show up. I was getting worried, so I had to come in and look for you.
Well, no need to worry. I'm perfectly fine. I was just at the principal's office collecting my... I came to a quick halt, realizing that I was telling him too much already.
Collecting your what?
He questioned. Never mind, let's go. During the limo ride home, I rehearsed my failure speech to my parents over and over again, with great emphasis on the part that said, I may have failed all my subjects, but let's look at the bright side. I didn't know what the bright side was, but I knew there was a bright side, and it was coming closer with each passing day. Want to know how magic turned me from a Dumbo to the most intelligent girl on the planet? Stick to the end of the video to find out. Before we proceed, hit the like and subscribe button immediately if you want magic to change your life for the best. I stepped into our mansion and tried to sneak to my room, but my parents were sitting on my bed waiting for me. With the look they had on their faces, I knew that they'd been informed of my grades already. Good morning, Mom and Dad. How was your day? I tried to sound cheerful, but the look on their faces was anything but. They just shook their heads, looking speechless.
What else can we do, Rachel? We sent you to one of the best schools in the country. We've given you a great life, a life most people can only dream of. We buy books for you, we encourage you to study, you have a full library to yourself at home. I don't know what to do anymore.
My dad sighed deeply, looking very sad.
What is wrong, honey? What is causing this? Whatever it is, you can tell us.
I honestly didn't know what was wrong with me. I couldn't understand why I was so dumb despite trying my best to study. I don't know, Mom. I wish I did. My parents left the room looking defeated. I'd expected a worse reaction, but my parents just looked hurt, so sad that it almost looked like they wanted to cry. A few days had passed since I had that sad discussion with my parents. It was a Saturday morning, and I ran downstairs to get a glass of milk. There was a strange man waiting for me in the kitchen. Who are you and why are you in my kitchen?
Oh, hello, Miss Rachel. How are you doing this morning? I hope you had a great night. Feel free to call me Freddie. I'm your new tutor.
Tutor? As much as I wanted to run back to my room and lock my door, I knew I really needed lessons. Fine. I poured myself a glass of milk. Do you want one?
Oh, no. Thank you for the offer, miss.
I shrugged. Okay. The next few weeks were filled with extra lessons. Once I was done with school, I'd come back home and continue with my tutor. I'm sure you must think that something changed. Absolutely not. I remained as dumb as ever. My parents even believed I had gotten worse. The tutor was fired and new tutors were hired every week whenever the last one failed to create an impact on my brain, but it was all to no avail. I never got better. My parents stopped hiring tutors and decided that they'd create more free time from work and try to tutor me themselves. My dad had spent a whole day teaching me about the reproductive system when he asked me what my favorite part of the lesson was. He looked stunned when he realized that I couldn't remember any part of the full day's lesson. That was the last time my dad tutored me. He was replaced with Mom, who had more patience. The next month, I went for my monthly brain and body checkup, but the doctor insisted that nothing was wrong with me, just like other doctors had said over the years.
Her brain and body are in perfect condition. If there's anything making her fail, it is definitely not a medical issue. She's just as normal as any other teenager.
My parents sighed. They really hoped that I had some kind of brain condition that was making me fail, but that was as far away from the truth as possible. I overheard my parents arguing one day, so I snuck out of my room to find them. I found them in their home office. The door had been left slightly open, and this was why the sound of their voices were flowing down the hallway.
You really embarrassed us today.
Sweetheart, this is normal. Wealthy people like us bribe schools all the time. The only abnormal thing is the school refusing such a huge sum of money when I know they need it. That principal's ethics may drag her school to the mud.
That evil woman just wanted to get rid of our beautiful daughter.
I don't know what to do anymore. Perhaps it's all for the best. Rachel should forget about schooling and start a business. We can't keep spending all these billions on school fees when she isn't improving.
I don't understand. What happened? I barged into the office. They looked surprised to see me, but quickly regained their composure.
You've been expelled.
My dad said nonchalantly. Huh? Why?
Well, your principal threatened to expel you if you didn't get better, and your amazing father decided to offer her a bribe to keep you back in school and keep your grades up, but the stupid woman got offended by his kind act, and she expelled you on the spot instead,
Mom said sarcastically. I ran back to my room in tears. Perhaps Dad was right. I needed to forget about school. I was too dumb to understand anything anyway. Mom hadn't given up on me yet, so she decided to consult God. She dragged me to different churches and mosques, hoping that religious leaders would pray for me and release me from this disease that was causing my dumbness. Unfortunately, her efforts were in vain because nothing changed. On one particular occasion, when a pastor was praying for me, the principal that expelled me from school came into the church. She witnessed the pastor trying to deliver me from stupidity and burst into laughter. She left shortly after that, and I felt so embarrassed. A few days later, she called my parents and told them that I could resume school. We were overjoyed. The Lord really worked in mysterious ways after all. I was healed of schoollessness, but not dumbness. Mom convinced me to keep going to all church programs. Perhaps my dumbness would be the next thing on God's list. Dad visited me one day during a church program, and I was so excited to see him, so once we were done, I ran straight into his arms. After hugging him, we started walking home, while our limo driver followed us with the car behind.
Sweetheart, let's stop at the park and get ice cream. We could also hang out there for a few minutes. What do you think?
Yay, absolutely, I giggled. As we were licking ice cream and talking on the swing, a strange-looking old woman walked up to us and smiled.
You guys look so happy together, but I can see deep within your souls. I know what your problems are, and I know how to solve them.
What's my problem? I asked, curious.
Sweetheart, don't talk to those homeless dirty people. All right, shoo, get out of here.
My dad tried chasing the woman away. Dad, it's all right. I'm just toying with her. What's my problem, old woman? I asked again. The woman had started leaving but stopped once she heard my question.
I have a cure for dumbness,
she said, handing me a pen.
Use this pen for exams and tests, and you'd always get straight A's.
My dad burst into laughter.
What? This is so crazy and funny.
I stretched my right hand to collect it, but she quickly put the pen behind her.
This pen is not for free.
How much is it?
It has 3 conditions attached to it. 1, you have to get a job, an actual job where you work hard to make money. And from the monthly salary you get from this job, you'll transfer $50 to me every month as monthly payment for the pen. 2, you will actually have to read and prepare hard for all your papers. The pen doesn't work if you don't make any effort. 3, you have to write the exam and make sure that the answers are correct to the best of your ability. Then the pen will take care of the rest. That is all.
She stretched her hand towards me. This time, she was holding both the pen and a piece of paper with her account number.
If you try to cheat in any way, form, or manner, e.g., you don't read or you miss a monthly payment, or you pay me from Daddy's money instead of yours, the pen will stop working immediately.
I nodded and tried to collect the pen and paper from the woman, but my dad slapped the woman's hand off.
That's enough, Rachel. Get up, we're leaving.
And with that, he dragged me away. Luckily, I was able to grab the pen and paper from the woman and hide it in my pocket before I was whisked away. I got a job as a fashion editor's intern, and it was dreadful at first. My monthly salary was a quarter of the allowance that my dad gave me weekly. I wanted to quit immediately, but I remembered what the old woman said and decided to try harder. In a very short time, I was enjoying the job and learning new things. I set up an automatic monthly payment of $50 from my new salary account to the old woman's account, and I read day and night. I read during school breaks, work breaks, and even weekends. I practiced and read more than I had ever done in my entire life. Just like the woman said, I got A's in everything I wrote with that pen, from tests to homework to classwork and more. My principal suspected that I was cheating and watched me like a hawk trying to catch me in action, but she never could. My dad noticed this difference and confronted me one day.
Why are you working at that fashion place? I know they don't pay you well. Why don't you just quit so you'd have more time to study?
I study at work too, Dad. It doesn't matter.
I want you to stop working there. That kind of work is only meant for middle-class people.
Do you have another job for me, Dad?
I don't want you to work at all for now. When you graduate, I'll give you a job that'll pay you millions monthly.
Sorry, Dad. I can't quit.
Wait a minute. This doesn't have anything to do with that old woman we met at the park, does it?
I'm not a good liar, so my dad got the truth from my facial expression, and he angrily called my mother. We discussed, and my mom managed to convince him to let me keep using the pen till I graduated high school. I was so excited. I kept using the pen and excelling for years, but something terrible happened on the morning of my final papers. I couldn't find the pen. I ransacked the house and school, but it had disappeared. I started having a panic attack and decided that I wasn't going to write the papers. I'd miss them and write them next year when I'd found the old pen or gotten a new one from the old woman. My parents pleaded with me. They reminded me that I'd studied so hard for my exams, and it'd be a shame to miss it. After a lot of convincing, I walked into the exam hall white as chalk and shaking like I was wrapped in ice. I did my very best in all the papers, just like I'd been doing in all my tests and exams. Then I came back home and waited for the dreadful news. To my surprise, I scored A's in all my papers, every single one. My parents were elated and we threw a huge graduation party. During the party, that strange old woman came in and everyone started hugging her like they knew her. Saying I was confused is an understatement. I was bewildered.
Rachel, come here.
My dad called out while hugging the old woman.
Meet my godmother and your great-godmother.
What? It turned out that it was just a plan and everyone was in on it. There was never a magic pen. It was just a plain old normal pen, and all the A's I'd been getting were of my own hard work. All I needed was a little push. All I had to do was study hard and believe in myself, and I could conquer anything. I wasn't dumb after all.
High school was everything I expected. Lots of popular kids enjoying their lives, and unpopular kids being completely ignored. I was among the unpopular group. No one ever noticed my existence until Felix, my first friend who convinced me to forget about popularity and just focus on my studies. I listened to him, and we became really good friends, acing every paper that was brought our way like it was nothing. I think I may have outread Felix, or perhaps I was just luckier, because at our first exams, I excelled in every single one of my subjects. The teachers said they wanted to give me a 200% mark on all my subjects because it didn't seem like 100% was enough. They were fascinated by me and wanted to test my intelligence, so they called me in for more tests. I agreed to write the tests on the condition that Felix was also invited. He was invited and we wrote the exams together, acing every paper that was thrown our way. The teachers couldn't believe it. Felix and I were bumped up 2 grades, and our lives changed forever. Hey you! My name is Kayla, and I'm here to tell you how a simple dress altered my reality. Like and subscribe so we can go on with the story. Thank you! Nobody had ever been bumped up not just 1, but 2 grades in our school, and in many schools around us before, so we quickly became popular. Felix avoided the popularity and just focused on studying. But I was tired of the constant studying already. I wanted to have fun. For the first time in my life, I had the opportunity to hang out with the popular kids as one of them. I couldn't miss it for the world. I quickly embraced my newfound popularity. I attended special parties with the richest kids, tutored both my juniors and my seniors in their private mansions, made friends with their celebrity parents, and even got some autographs. I went to the school library one day and found Felix, seriously studying as usual. Hey, bookhead.
Kayla, wow! It's been so long since we last spoke. I haven't been seeing much of you around. Haven't been doing a lot of studying, have you?
Definitely not. Not when I'm busy with celebrity parties, hangouts, and...
And free classes?
Huh?
Free classes, of course. Haven't you been tutoring almost half the school for free instead of studying for your own upcoming exams?
Yeah. And so what?
Do you really think this crowd cares about you? Can't you see that they're just using you to make their grades better?
And what if they are? The truth is you're just jealous because I'm popular now and you're not. I stormed out of the library. What did Felix know? He was just jealous.
Hey, Kayla, what's up?
Sierra stopped me immediately as I stepped out of the library. Hey, Sierra. I'm great. How are you doing?
Awesome. Can you do this homework for us?
She asked, handing me a huge pile of books.
It's just for me and a few of my friends. You can come for our party tomorrow if you're done with it on time.
She continued while twirling a little strand of her hair between her fingers. Someone coughed and I turned to see Felix standing at the library door. I turned back to face Sierra. Actually, I'd love to, but you see, I'm going to be very busy tonight, so I'll be unable to help you. But I'll meet you at the party tomorrow, okay? Sierra literally scoffed.
Party? What party? What makes you think that you're allowed into our party after refusing to help with our homework? Whatever. Bye.
She walked away and Felix started laughing behind me. I turned to him and he was about to say something, but I stopped him just in time. Don't even try uttering a word. I ran after Sierra and accepted the condition. I really wanted to attend that party no matter what. Besides, I wasn't losing anything by doing their homework by force. Nothing but my dignity, that is. My life continued this way. I taught the popular kids for free, helped with their homework, and even helped them during examinations. In exchange, they kept me popular. I wasn't crazy about the arrangement, but at least it worked. Somehow, things started getting out of control. I was attending too many parties, skipping classes, and even playing pranks on teachers. My grades started dropping, and I started to get into trouble with teachers and the school staff, people who previously loved me. Felix confronted me in front of my locker one day.
Kayla, I don't like what's happening with you. I've been trying to talk to you, but you never want to listen.
So, why are you here again then?
Because I care about you.
I'm sure you do. Look, I appreciate everything you've been doing for me, covering up for me whenever I miss a class, and attending parties so you can take me home safely after every party. You've been making sure that I never get harmed, and I appreciate it. It's quite noble. The only problem is that I never asked for your help. I've been very fine without it. Stop getting in trouble for me. Felix shook his head in disappointment.
Kayla, I don't know how else to reach you, but I just want you to know that no matter what, I'll always be on your side because you're my best friend.
I closed my locker and left him standing alone. I didn't have time for such nonsense. Things got worse over time. My grades dropped badly since I hardly ever made time to study, and soon I became an average to below average student. Not much different from the people I was tutoring. When they noticed this, they were done with me. No one approached me for help with anything anymore, and shortly after, I stopped getting invited to cool people hangouts and parties. I tried approaching Sierra one day. Hey, Sierra, I want to host a party in my house this weekend, and I'll really appreciate it if you came. Sierra and her friends burst into laughter.
Look, just get lost, kiddo, and don't approach me with this nonsense ever again.
I ran into an empty classroom and started crying, but Felix was by my side in a minute, comforting me while I bawled my eyes out.
It's okay, Kayla. Let it all out.
I just can't believe they do this to me when I gave them my all. I gave them everything.
I know you did.
I just don't know who I am anymore.
Can I tell you?
What?
Who you are.
Yes, tell me please.
You're Kayla Warrington, the first girl to be bumped up 2 grades at one go in centuries. The loyal friend who refuses to go up a ladder alone. A friend who changed my life in ways that other friends can only dream of. You're an unstoppable force, Kayla, with a heart of gold, and anyone who fails to recognize that is an idiot.
You're right. You're a genius, Felix.
Huh? Yes, I am, but what do you mean exactly?
Anyone who fails to recognize my greatness is an idiot. I'll crash Sierra's party tonight.
What? That's not what I meant. Come back.
but I was already gone. As he must have already suspected and guessed, I was embarrassed and thrown out of Sierra's party immediately after I arrived. Luckily, Felix was waiting for me outside once again in his rickety car. I can't believe you're here.
I'll always be here.
Felix helped me build up my studying habit once again, but it was really more difficult to keep myself on track than it was before. I remained an average student for some time, while I tried my best to get back my mojo. Felix didn't give up on me though. He did everything he could to help, and thanks to him, I was able to move up one step at a time. Over time, I tried my best to climb up the popularity ladder once again, but no matter what I did, I remained irrelevant, and this really affected my self-esteem. Felix always assured me that I was more than beautiful, but I didn't believe him. I continued looking down on myself. Prom finally arrived and I decided not to attend, but Felix and my parents kept trying to convince me.
If you don't go to prom, I won't go either. And you know that prom has been my dream for a long time. Are you really going to allow me to miss it?
Yes?
Sweetheart, we've all been waiting to see you in a really pretty dress today. Please don't disappoint us, okay? I even have the perfect gown for you. It's the exact same gown that I wore for my first ever prom, just like you. It will look great on you.
Fine, let's see it. My mom ran into her room and dug out an old but beautiful short ball gown, and I had to agree with their compliments when I checked myself out in the mirror because I was almost blinded by my own beauty and reflection. There was something about the gown. Once I stepped into the hall, everyone was in awe of my beauty. Everyone, both boys and girls, started struggling to spend just a few seconds with me, and I gave just a few of them the pleasure to hang out with me. I was even crowned prom queen that night. I totally forgot about Felix and enjoyed my prom night, but when it was time to go, there he was once again, waiting for me in his car outside. I couldn't believe it. That guy was really something. We spent some time studying and hanging out over the long break before a new school year finally began. After my experience at the prom night, I was ready to face the school year head on. I knew that it was going to be my year. To my surprise, when I arrived at school, the exact opposite of my expectations happened. Instead of people being crazy about me and worshiping me like they did that night, everything just went back to normal, with people ignoring me once again. No one apart from Felix behaved like I existed. I went back home that night and put on the gown. I was weeping, so I hope that sleeping while wearing the gown will remind me of how I felt that night and comfort me somehow. When I went to school the next day, everything had changed again. The tides had turned in my favor once again, and everyone was back to worshiping me. At this point, I realized that these strange occurrences had nothing to do with me, but absolutely everything to do with that gown. The gown had some sort of magical power that it extended to me whenever I wore it. After this astounding realization, my magical prom gown became my magical nightwear. I wore it every night to sleep, and every new day was filled with one blessing or the other. Another school year passed and I became the most popular and beautiful girl in my high school. I completely forgot about Felix's existence, and he didn't try to force his way into my circle either. He just stayed away and monitored me from afar. It creeped me out. After 1 year of sleeping with the magical gown every single night, it started getting weak, making me panic badly. After just a few days of me noticing its growing weakness, it ripped into two on its own. It was almost like it was tired of me and wanted to get away. Not wanting to give up on the only thing that gave my life meaning, I took the gown to different tailors to try to fix it, but the more they tried, the more it tore, until it finally tore to shreds almost paper-like. On that fateful night, I cried as I went to bed, spreading the shredded gown all over my skin. I could feel it in my soul. I knew that there was no life in the gown. I knew its powers had faded. I pretended to be terribly sick and managed to avoid school for 1 week until my mother dragged me to the hospital. The doctor tested me and assured my mother that there was nothing wrong with me, and I was probably just avoiding school. You can't figure out what's wrong with me because it's not something you can see, and it's definitely not your area of expertise.
Young woman, I can't believe you'll go to this extent to avoid school. I want you dressed bright and early, ready for school on Monday.
I can't go to school, Mom.
Yes, you can, and you will.
My mom dragged me to school on Monday morning and made sure I entered my class. I got to school, and no one could even remember who I was or why I was talking to them. I tried to convince my parents to send me to a new school, but all my pleas fell on deaf ears. I really wanted to feel the way the gown made me feel once again, so I decided to pretend like I was wearing the gown whenever I was in school or anywhere else. Once I made myself believe that I still had the powers of the gown, I was able to talk and act like I did previously. To my surprise, it worked, and everything went right back to my new popular normal. I realized that what I'd been lacking was confidence all along. The gown wasn't really magical, it just shone a light on what was already inside me. With my newfound confidence, I was also encouraged to read more, and my grades started getting back on track. I was reading in the library one day when I saw Felix's new girlfriend kissing another guy. I ran to tell him, but he didn't believe me.
You just want me to be alone and unhappy once again, Kayla.
Why would I ever want that? I love you. I didn't know when the words left my lips, and I was just as shocked as Felix when he heard them.
I'm sorry, it's too late now.
It took Felix some time, but he finally came around and told me he felt the same way.
I've always known that she was just using me to get better grades for her and her real boyfriend. But I just didn't want to be alone, especially after you rejected me for such a long time.
That is a terrible mistake, one I never hope to repeat. Thank you for giving me another chance.
Stay away from me and stop making up stories about me. Please stop following me around like a lost puppy.
I couldn't believe that Mason could say such mean things to me. What happened to my best friend? I walked away with my head low, ignoring the laughter and whispers from everyone in my class. Hi, my name is Amy. 10 years ago, my best friend Mason moved away with his family. Now he's back, but he's not the Mason that I used to know. Wanna know why? Watch till the end. But first, please like this video and subscribe to this channel. Also, hit that notification bell so you don't miss more cool stories.
OMG, he's like so hot.
My friend Chloe was practically vibrating in her seat.
Oh, please, he'll be mine by the end of third period.
Sam, my other friend, rolled her eyes. What are you guys talking about? They both looked at me like I'd grown 2 heads.
Have you been living in a cave? Sometimes I wonder how you'd survive without us. There's a new guy in school. We saw him at the principal's office. Please let him be in our class.
Chloe put her hands together and looked up at the ceiling. Just then, the door opened and a tall boy with blonde hair walked in.
OMG, OMG, OMG.
Breathe, Chloe.
Class, I'd like you to welcome Mason Greenwood. He transferred from out of state.
Mr. Radish, our math teacher, announced. I knew that name. Mason? Oh my god, is that really you? Everyone stared at me.
Amy? Amy the piggy?
The whole class laughed. Yes, but I don't go by that anymore. As you can see, no more pigtails.
Of course. Wow, look at you. You look so different now.
I blushed a little. Chloe and Sam were watching us with their mouths open.
Mason, please sit. You and Amy will catch up later.
He took the only available seat in front of me. I didn't pay attention to Mr. Radish for the rest of the class.
Start talking, piggy.
Math class just ended. Chloe, Sam, and I stood outside waiting for Mason to finish talking to Mr. Radish. Don't call me that. Mason and I grew up together, but he moved 10 years ago.
Where did he move to? Heaven? Because they must have been missing an angel.
I'm no angel.
Mason laughed as he joined us. Oh god. I'm so sorry. My friends can be annoying. Sam rolled her eyes and pretended not to notice Mason standing right next to her. After a few awkward minutes of Chloe introducing herself to Mason, Mason and I excused ourselves and left.
So, Chloe,
I'm so embarrassed right now. She's not always like that, I promise.
I actually liked her energy.
Don't let her hear you say that. She'll declare you her boyfriend.
You say that like it's a bad thing.
We were both laughing now. Well, I guess it depends if you like wearing matching socks and drawing hearts on each other's notebooks. Mason visibly cringed. I thought so.
It's so good to see you again. How have you been? How's your mom?
Over the next few days, Mason and I spent a lot of time together. I invited him over to dinner and we had a great time remembering the good old days. Remember when we snuck out and you crashed your bike by Wickery Bridge? Mason looked confused for a minute but then smiled.
To be honest, I don't remember much from back then. It's part of the reason I decided to come back. I didn't want to completely forget this place, and you.
That's so sweet. We're glad to have you back.
Thanks, Mrs. Anderson.
After dinner, we went for a walk. Come on, you have to remember that night. You hurt your knee so bad you ended up in hospital. You had a huge scar here. See? I looked at his knee and was surprised to see that the scar was no longer there.
You're staring. More like drooling.
I'm not. The girls and I were watching as Mason and the rest of the basketball team practiced. He had joined the team about a week ago, much to my surprise. Mason never had any interest in sports, let alone basketball. Things had become a little bit tense between us after our walk that night. He looked uneasy around me. Whenever I brought up something from our childhood, he changed the subject or became very moody.
Amy, look! When did that even happen?
Mason was kissing Tracy, my sworn enemy. Tracy lived across the street from Mason and I. When we were kids, she made playing in our neighborhood a nightmare. She teased Mason about his braces and his glasses. Sometimes he'd go home crying. She's the one that came up with the name Amy the Piggy. Mason told everyone that the name was because I always had my hair in pigtails, but Tracy said it because I was fat. 10 years later, she was still just as mean, if not worse. How could he kiss her? I stood up and walked past them. Tracy looked at me and smiled. So did Mason. That evening, our doorbell rang and I ran to answer it. What are you doing here? Shouldn't you be across the street with Tracy? Ugh, I hate that I sounded jealous.
Come on, Amy. She's different now.
Wow.
Anyway, I just thought we could hang out a bit. What do you say?
What happened to your scar?
I'm getting tired of this. Can we hang out or not?
You didn't answer me.
Unbelievable. You know what? I tried. Goodbye, Amy.
He walked across the street to Tracy's house. Something was off with him. I could feel it. I just wasn't sure what. At school the next day, I saw Mason walk behind the library and jump over the fence. I followed him and did the same. I was no athlete, but I'd jumped over that fence a lot of times. At first, I thought he was going home, but a few hundred meters from home, he turned onto a deserted dirt road. The only property along the road was an abandoned factory. When he got to the factory gate, he stopped. An older guy was leaning against the gate, smoking. A car was parked nearby. I hid behind the wall and watched them.
What took you so long? I've been here an hour.
Basketball practice. Come on, let's go in.
I still don't get why you had to go and join that stupid team.
High school is boring. I need to occupy myself.
Whatever. Did Amy stop asking questions?
The mention of my name startled me and I took a step back. I stepped on a rock and fell.
What was that? Is somebody there?
My heart was beating so fast.
Come on, Joel, let's go.
I heard car doors open, then close a few seconds later. I peered around the corner and saw Mason and Joel disappear into some buildings. They were carrying 2 duffel bags. A few minutes later, they walked out without the bags. After they drove off, I thought about going in to check what was in those bags, but I didn't want to risk getting caught, so I left. Joel didn't look like the warm and fuzzy type.
Earth to Amy.
Chloe and I were in my room working on some assignments. She shut her book and stared at me.
Okay, talk.
I wasn't sure if I could trust Chloe with what I'd seen.
Amy, you're scaring me.
It's Mason. I saw him do something suspicious. Probably illegal.
What? When was this?
A few days ago, I followed him to the old factory by Raven Road. I told her everything. By the time I was done talking, Chloe was dialing Sam's number. What are you doing?
Hey, Sam, you need to get to Amy's right now.
Sam arrived half an hour later.
You want to tell me why you made me rush here like you guys were on fire? Sorry to disturb your beauty sleep, princess. We have a mission to get to.
Chloe filled in Sam on everything as we walked to the factory. When we got there, it was already dark and we had to use our phones as flashlights. The girls followed me to the building Mason and Joel had disappeared to a few days ago.
If I see a rat, I'm out of here.
We walked in and out of several empty rooms. Guys, look! In a corner, partially covered by rubble, were 2 duffel bags. Chloe ran and opened one of the bags. She dropped her phone and walked backwards.
Please don't say someone's dead in there.
I shone my flashlight towards the open bag. It's money. A lot of it. Probably millions. I opened the other bag and found even more money.
I don't like this. We need to get out of here now.
Should we call the police?
I don't want any trouble. Let's just leave.
We bolted out of there and didn't stop until we were outside the factory gate. When we got to my house, Mom told the girls that it was late and they needed to go home. That night, I had nightmares of Mason being a two-faced monster who took off his face at night. Yeah, no thank you. The next morning, I told Mom everything.
We need to call the police now. You should have told me last night.
Half an hour later, a police officer rang our doorbell and asked Mom and me to follow him. We arrived at the factory a few minutes later. I led them to the room with the money, only when we got there, it was empty. The money was gone.
Are you sure this is where it was?
Was there any money at all, miss? You know how kids are nowadays.
I knew that voice. I turned and blood drained from my face. It was Joel standing right behind my mom. He was in a police uniform. But I saw you. You and Mason put the money here a few days ago. You're a police officer?
This is Officer Callahan. He was transferred to our station a few weeks ago. What are you accusing him of?
He was here before. Him and my friend, neighbor, Mason. They took the money from a car and carried it here.
Amy, that's enough. Let's go now. We're sorry we wasted your time, officers. I'll make sure Amy never does this again.
But Mom, you have to believe me. I saw him.
Enough. I won't have you make false accusations about me. You're clearly a disturbed girl.
I ran out in tears. What on earth was going on? The next day at school, I knew I had to talk to Mason. I was sure of what I'd seen and I wanted to find out what was happening. Mason, can we talk?
Stay away from me and stop making up stories about me. Please stop following me around like a lost puppy.
I couldn't believe that Mason could say such mean things to me. What happened to my best friend? I walked away with my head low, ignoring the laughter and whispers from everyone in my class. I skipped school the next day. Chloe and Sam called, but I didn't pick up. Mom was so mad at me, I thought she'd ground me for life. Honestly, that would be fine with me because I was never going outside ever again anyway. An hour later, I was outside. There were loud noises coming from Mason's house. Before I could talk myself out of it, I ran all the way there. Mason, are you in there? The door opened and Mason ran out.
What now?
Is everything okay? I heard shouting.
For God's sake, Amy, leave me alone. Go back to your house before...
Who's in there with you? I pushed my way past him and walked into his house.
You shouldn't have done that.
Joel stood by the window looking down the street. He sounded so calm and cold. I knew immediately that I was in big trouble. I turned to walk back outside, but Mason stood in my way.
Why couldn't you just leave me alone? I don't know how Mason was ever friends with you. You're so annoying.
I knew it. Who are you? They both laughed.
She never stops, does she?
You have no idea.
I'm calling the police. When I took out my phone, fake Mason lunged at me. Get away from me! Somebody help! I screamed at the top of my lungs. He tried to cover my mouth, but I bit him and kept on screaming. Loud knocking came from the door.
Police, open up!
I slipped out of fake Mason's hold and went for the door. I opened it and ran into someone's arms. Let go of me!
Amy, calm down. It's me, Mason.
I looked up and stared into hazel eyes and glasses. Mason?
Yes, it's me. Are you hurt?
I hugged him as I cried. It's so good to see you. I thought I was going crazy. The door opened and police officers walked out. Joel and fake Mason were in handcuffs. One officer was carrying 2 duffel bags.
Ivan, what are you doing in my house? And you are? I'm Mason. This is my parents' house. That's Ivan, my friend and neighbor back home. And that's Joel, his stepbrother. They robbed a store and skipped town. Why is Joel in police uniform? He's not an officer. We know that now. Police in your town tracked them here. They arrived this morning and asked for our assistance arresting them.
Mason and I stood at the bus station saying goodbye. It had been a crazy couple of days. The police had recorded our statements and assured us that Ivan and Joel would not be released anytime soon. Mason told me that his parents had sent him to check on the house after they received an electricity bill from the power company. The house hadn't had a tenant in months. When he arrived, he saw police cars outside. I don't want you to leave.
I have graduation coming up and so do you, but I promise I'll come back, okay?
Okay, are you still planning to go to college here? Before he left years ago, we agreed to go to the same college a few miles out of town.
Yeah, I was planning to surprise you, but I think you've had enough surprises.
I sure have. Well then, I'll see you in a few months.
You bet.
I couldn't wait to have my best friend back, the real one this time.